Okay, it's a Scorpio lunar eclipse, full moon on the 5th of May, and I'm going to share with you. In fact, you can see if you look here, this site is astro-seek.com, and it's really fabulous. Like, there's so much information on this site. I use a couple. Apart from Solarfire, I also use astro.com, and these resources are free and you can sign up to either of them. They're both brilliant resources and you're able to put up your own charts, and they have different things that you can do on those different sites. So here you can get your, if you go to, forget the moon calendar bit and just go astroseek.com and Google that, and then this will come up, and then you put in free horoscope, you put in your data, you need your time of birth, really important because we have the rising sign, which I'll show you on my chart if you're not familiar with astrology. Then if we look at the eclipses, because it's really fantastic, you can see from the different choices that you can make. You can bring up today's chart or you can bring up the upcoming eclipses. So we had a solar eclipse on, get my pointer, we had a solar eclipse on April 20th at 29 degrees of Aries, you see here. And then May the 5th, we've got 2023. This is UK time here, it's at 18:24 tomorrow evening in the United Kingdom. So look to where you are, because if you are in New York, then there's 5 hours difference. If you're in California, then it's 8 hours difference, and that's backwards in time, but it will be on the same day. And then if you're in Australia, it's ahead, so it's time zone related. Then we then got, the next one will be October the 14th and then October the 28th, solar eclipse, lunar eclipse. You see here it says Saros cycles. This is, they follow through. So I'm going to show you, if we look at May 5th, the one that's happening within the next less than 24 hours at Scorpio 14 degrees. I'm going to show you the chart in a moment, by the way. But if you look at this, it says lunar eclipses of Saros 141, and it goes back to 1608 here, and you can see it's all 141. So they run in cycles and they're called Saros cycles, but that's a whole different thing to explain, which I won't go into now. Now, if I go over to this chart, you see here, what we have is that we've got the chart of the solar eclipse. So when we have this, we have the time, I'll make this a bit smaller. What we have, the time is not exactly like a full moon. You can see because of the degrees, it's almost, but it's just slightly out. So we got, the sun is 1457. So if we look, the sun is 1457 and the moon is opposite. At the eclipse time, it's at 1452 degrees. However, a full moon, it will be exact opposite, which is a couple more degrees. Not degree, it's not a couple of more degrees, it's a few more minutes there. So let's see where I'm at. So I'm going to explain Scorpio to you. I've got some paperwork here and I'll run through what's going on briefly before I move on to explaining what Scorpio energy is. So we've got the traditional chart, which is 0 degrees of Aries here, and it will be different on your own chart. For me, this is happening in my 12th house, and you will need to look to your own chart to look where 14 degrees of Scorpio is. Okay, so you can see that currently I'm going to run through the chart and the planets this way. So we've got Chiron in Aries, and we have Jupiter also in Aries, which will be moving into Taurus within the next week. We've got the North Node, which is at 4 degrees of Taurus, and that will be going it moves that way around the chart. The nodes go this way, the planets move this way around the chart, but the node, which ties in with the North Node and South Node, tie in with the eclipses, this is moving this way around the chart, which is clockwise, and then the planets go this way. So you can see that the North Node is there with Mercury, and it's also in between, Mercury's in between the Sun, and then we've got the Sun conjunct Uranus. So the Sun will be moving on into Uranus, because Uranus takes 84 years around the chart, and the Sun takes a year. So the Sun moves 1 degree a day. So in 4 days, it will touch in with Uranus. So we'll have a conjunction. And you can see all of the planets in Taurus here. It looks like a stellium going on here, but there is quite a bit of space between orbs. You can see that's 10-degree difference. And then we've got 4-degree difference there, and again a 4-degree difference, and another 4-degree difference going on there. If you look, 4, 8, 14, no, 8 to 14, that's got that wrong, 16 almost. And then we've got Venus is in Gemini at 27 degrees, so that will also be moving signs into the sign of Cancer. We've got Mars conjunct Lilith almost, which is also in the sign of Cancer. I love Lilith and the work, the education in astrology and the understanding of Lilith is really wonderful. It's the feminine energy of, it can be where we have rage, where we have the Garden of Eden, where Lilith in the mythology did not want to lay below Adam, and Lilith was cast out, and there's a whole lot of mythology. In fact, in all of astrology, there is a lot of mythology. If we consider, I don't know how many years ago, but let's say we go back 1,000 years ago, or even 500 years ago, we would not have had the resources we have now, like computers, mobile phones, and the existential noise. So people would have also maybe not had electricity. So people would have been seeing more of the stars. They would have been far more obvious to people, and people would have been making up stories around the constellations and stuff like that. So it's very interesting when we consider, where astrology has come from. I don't think the newspapers, like when people read their stars in the newspapers, which is quite popular, that really that defines astrology. It's very simplistic, and we can't just go by the sun sign. Like, for instance, everybody has Scorpio in their chart, everybody has Aries in their chart, everybody has Taurus. Then we have all of our aspects. So my sun sign is Gemini, my moon sign is Gemini, but I'm Scorpio rising. So it's really complex, and we pull it all in together. And then we have transits. This is a transit chart of the planets that are going on now. I'll show you my birth chart, but then this gets transposed onto our, if that's the correct word, onto our own chart. So we're at Lilith, and then we've got the South Node, which is past, which is where the moon is it's moved over already. It's moved over the South Node, I would believe by now. And we have this opposition going on to the planets here. So it's opposing the Sun, it's opposing Mercury, it's opposing the North Node, and it's also almost out of orb with the South Node. It's also doing a lot of other things here. You can see these are the aspects. So Mars, Neptune is involved, and I'll run through those. And then what I'll show you is, you can see this is my chart. And you can see that at the time tomorrow, for me, it's going to be in my 12th house. And then I've got it's not touching any of my personal planets, yeah? But it is on my progress chart that is falling on my MC, because my progress chart is 14 degrees of, or 15 degrees actually of, I'm thinking about this, 15 degrees of Scorpio at the moment. And in a progress chart, the planets move 1 degree a year, and so do the angles on a progress chart. So let's go back to this chart of today before I jump over to solar fire. So let me read this for you. So this is evolutionary astrology, but generally the planets will be, when people get to know them, they understand what the key words are. So we have commitment. This is 8th house stuff as well. Scorpio keywords: commitment. We have fear of entrapment. It can be the spy. It can be betrayal. It can be compulsions. It can also be obsessions. Shared resources. We all share resources, but sometimes we share more resources with others. But being on Earth, we're all sharing resources. It's resourcefulness. It's power and powerlessness. It's some magic curses. That's what it says here. But this is to do with, the depth of astrology and the magical stuff. It's a corrupt power. We can consider that. There's a lot of that going on. There's manipulation. There's loss. There can be, and I'm not just talking about the governments. I'm talking about just throughout the world, even in relationships, there can be families and all sorts of things. There can be corrupt power going on in organizations, also all sorts of things. There's manipulation, loss, abandonment, merging. We want to merge. Metamorphosis, this is a positive thing. Alchemy, what is taboo, covert, secrets, darkness. There can be, violence, also phobias. It's got Mars also goes in with Scorpio, and Pluto as well. We've got paranoia. We've got, Egypt as an example here. So if we were looking at past lives, we would bring Egypt into the equation. Intensity, fascination. It's psychology, psychological. It can be destruction as well. Pluto, plutonic. And also compulsions, obsessions, fear of vulnerability, fear of intimacy, and also sex and sexuality as well. If we look then at the moon as a lunar eclipse, and I'm going to look at the 8th house, and I'll tell you what it means in the 12th house for me. And clearly we've got these aspects. These eclipses, they have the Saros cycle, which I need to educate myself more on that. But the other thing as well is that these eclipses, they have a storyline and they'll go on for 6 months. So if we go back 9 years and we go back 18 years, what was going on then? They seem to have a cycle that continues, the storyline that continues, which is really interesting. So if we go back, I think it would be 2005. If I look back to 2005, what was I doing? Where was I at? What was going on in my life? And then I'm moving on or bringing the closure to a cycle of something as well. But then there's a new beginning. So even though it's not a new moon, it's endings and beginnings go together. They're just consistently happening that way. So the full moon in the 8th house, which would be, traditionally it's in the 8th house, but it's not going to, you're not looking at that unless it is in your 8th house. So I'm going to read you what it means in my 12th house when we look at my chart. And then when I show you solar fire, we're going to go deeper into some of the aspects that are going on. So it's where we transform something in our lives. This is Scorpio 8th house. And usually this stuff is going on at a really deep level. It's where we release something or things in our life that are holding us back and feel heavy. And this eclipse is a purging, because of the other things that are going on here. It's a huge purging that's going on. It's getting rid of what is toxic, no longer needed in our lives. And that could be really different for many of us. And depending on what house it's in, that's the area of life that we're purging something from. So if it was in your 6th house, it could be to do with work related stuff. If it was in your 10th house, it could be to do with your career. The 11th house, hopes and dreams. And the first house, it would be something to do with oneself. It's a transformation, can be something physical. It could be restoring something. It's to do with our intimacy and security. So we're talking here, remember, 8th house stuff. And it's also where we may be lending money as well to people that we know, or people may be lending money to us, and it may be dealing with loans or credit cards and things like that. And it's where we evaluate things, that we're evaluating things, but they're not just our things, it's to do with others as well. Okay, so then you would look at your own house. So let's go over to my chart. And the reason I'm showing you this is so that you can think about, then it might give you your own ideas how to look at your chart. That is the main reason I'm showing you. So new share. Okay, so you see the moon is here for me, and in the 12th house I'm dealing with something from subconscious stuff, and also it's a good time for therapy. So I had a really interesting meeting tonight with somebody and looked at my chart with an astrologer, and I got some really good ideas about what's going on for me. We looked at my North Node, and we looked at a few other things and aspects that I've got going on from now until 2025. So it was very beneficial, and I was able to express myself in a way, because the language of astrology is often talking about deeper things and also looking at our own shadow. So it's very useful. It's a very useful tool to begin to dig deeper and to come clean as well in our lives about our own part in things. There are clearly parts of our lives that we are almost, we can be oblivious to them, and until we become conscious, the unconscious made conscious, which is the work of Carl Gustav Jung. So it's the hidden stuff that could bubble to the surface with this, for me, there in the 12th house. The interesting thing is that it's allowed, I've had some really strange dreams this week, and a few things that have happened that have been synchronous, not particularly good or bad, but just like a particular animal was coming to mind. With me, it's been a bear. I had a situation on Saturday, not in London, but something that I saw made me think about that. And then I saw something today that was a bit distressing for me about bears as well. So it's interesting how these things can make us think and reflect. It's like not a sign, but it's just, so I have felt tired because it's in the 12th house. I want to sort of withdraw, not from the world, but, just to be more inward. And it's where you don't want to be in the spotlight, but I am in the spotlight right now whilst I'm recording this. So that's quite funny, but I can manage that part. So my dreams, yeah, they've been really, really active, very lucid dreaming the last 2 days. And dreams can be representative of our emotional state. So, and we can figure out, nobody can tell us what our dreams mean, but often if we speak to other people, we'll come up with other ideas. So there's no point in saying to somebody, what does my dream mean? It's more of a case of talking to somebody about the things you've seen in your dreams, and then people give other different ideas. It could be this, it could be that. It's great discussing these things with people, because they come up with different ideas of maybe something we haven't thought of. So let's go to solar fire, which is my favorite bit here, spotlight. Okay, so you see here, what we have is the chart of today, or being the 5th at 1824, that's British summertime. So do recall that it's going to be a different time depending on where you are, so you can always Google that. So Pluto is gone retrograde, and it went retrograde a few days ago, and that's going to go back into Aquarius. No, it's moving from Aquarius back into Capricorn. It moved into Capricorn in 2007, 2008, and then it was there, and then it's gone. And funnily enough, if you don't know, a lot of people in astrology do know that Pluto, the USA formed the 4th of July 1776. I'm doing a bit of a Mercury mismanagement today, I think, but we're doing good. So this 1776, when Pluto was at 27 degrees Capricorn, the USA formed, so it's taken all of that time for Pluto to move into Aquarius, which is 250 years on average, which is really fascinating that we're going through this time collectively. And it is pretty crazy when you think like all of the artificial intelligence that's coming up. It just feels so crazy to me when I'm scrolling through, even if we go back a few years, like Instagram, all of these different apps. It just feels like so overwhelming. And then we have to choose, where am I going? What news station or where am I going to get my news from that's the truth or nearing the truth, or who is telling the truth? There's a brilliant guy I watch who talks on personality disorders called Sam Vaknin, and he was mentioning that let me think about this, the idea that of chat AI or chat GBT, I can't recall the name of it. I've got it on my computer, my laptop, but he asked questions about himself on that system, and it came back with stuff that wasn't true. And one of them was quite shocking, some of the things that were coming up. So we have to make sure and double verify our information that we're sharing and collecting. A lot of the things that we consider to be truth are really a reflection of our belief systems. So whether something is true or not, we really don't know. Like, it's a bit of an argument maybe in astrology, but as an example, some people 100% believe in past lives. I'm 50-50. It's all relative. Sometimes I think it's possible. I'm not sure. This is my truth. However, I look at astrology and I understand the symbols. Then we could look at all sorts of things. We could look at religion. Is that fantasy or is it truth? It depends who you're talking to. However, if I was speaking to somebody that believes in certain aspects, they're going to believe it, and then other people won't. So I'm not telling you what my belief systems are on that. I'm just explaining that different people will have different belief systems depending on their culture, depending on their upbringing, depending on where they're at in their lives. And there are many things that are coming to light where people are even deciding they, are, I don't know what the word would be, but they're choosing terminology to not even define sort of a definition of no definition, so to speak, which is very interesting. So again, maybe in 20 years time, we get used to things and then that becomes a norm. So things keep changing and things keep developing. So Pluto, let's look here, and the sun, and you've got up here the moon, and then you've got, if I move this by minutes, you're going to see that it will become a full moon, because what we want is the moon exactly the same degree as the sun. So if I go forward, and 53, 54, you see it moving here, 55, 56, 1458 we want, 57, 58. There you go. So now it's completely opposite. Although it doesn't look at it like that, that's because of this stellium going on here, but it's the same degree, look, 1458, and the sun is 1458. So the sun would be opposite there, but we have all of this other stuff. Look at this in Taurus. Some of these that you see here they are asteroids and other points. So as a result of that, I won't go into these, but I look at these for myself as I learn. And we have beautifully, I love Mars and Lilith, as I said. Mars is a really, it's a go for it energy, but it also can be very impulsive. It's in Cancer at the moment, which is it can feel a bit uncomfortable because Mars is in water. There's nothing good nor bad about it. It just depends how we manage that energy. And as a result of having more planets, when you're looking in the inside, the aspects, you can see it gets really, really busy. You can hardly just about see them. But we can see that Pluto is square to the nodes. So that's 0 degree. If I go, oh, this is the other thing as well. Mercury is going to go direct in about 10 days, if not before 9 days. And then I'm going to do this by, should I go days, or let's think about this. I'm going to go days. So we've got this going on. We know it's going to be 6 months, the lunar eclipse, solar eclipse, lunar eclipse, and we'll have more in October. And that will be the area of life. So look for that. That's the main thing. What are you working with? And the planets or the houses going opposite. So it's my 12th house and then it's my 6th house. So 12th house and 6th house I'm working with for myself. However, the solar eclipse was in my 5th house and my 11th house, and that's because of the way my cusps break up. I don't use whole house myself. Everybody does it slightly differently. So, and that will change the chart. I'm using porphyry generally as a way of looking at a chart when I do look at charts. There are different house systems. So people prefer different house systems, and we do use what we use. So let's see here, a few things. So when the nodes are going to become exact, so we have a push-pull. This is where we're really solving something from the past. So if we look at Pluto, the node to the, let me get this right, to the left is the resolution node. So there's something from the past. The North Node is our way forward. And if you look in evolutionary astrology, I do believe it's looking to the left and making sure I'm getting my right, left correct. So there. Then if I go days, so what I'm looking at is, if we look at the nodes, we're looking for them to go to 3, align with Pluto. So they'll go to 0 degrees. And it's going to take some time. It's literally the whole year. You can see how slow that is. You can see then Pluto's gone back into the last leg of Pluto in Capricorn, and then it won't, and then for 20 years it will be in Aquarius, and then it will take, to be in Capricorn again, it's going to take 250 odd years. So let's keep going with these nodes. That's 2 nodes. It can sound a bit, there you go. All right, 0 degrees. So we can see this is happening. This is, if I look at this is July 2023. You might not see because it's behind, the dates are behind my camera here, although you can see up here that it's the 8th of July. So actually you can see it. So that's the 8th of July. So we can see we've got this square going on, and it will go direct around October, I believe. May, June, July, August, September. So I know I'm going forward, but I'm showing you pretty speedy. So September, and it goes direct. It's good to see this because it gives you more of an understanding what's going on. So it goes back to 27 degrees. It stations there. See the little S here, stationed, and then it goes direct on the 12th of October 2023. So as a result of that, we are having the nodes, which are then at that time, they're going to be, you can see actually it's just all been out, because the node will then be in Aries by 24 degrees. So it's interesting times we're in with the squaring the nodes, which does happen every 18 years, but it'll be that one node has a bigger play on things as it moves round, because where the resolution node will always be the one that's to the left. If you stand on the planet, then you will look to what node is on the left, and that is it. Now I'm going to speed this up and not go back by days. I'm going to go back to the 5th of the 5th. So 05, 5th, May 5th, 2023. So I think it's a time to take it easy and not to react to anybody as well, like try and not get into confrontations. And the reason is, if you look at this 5th of May, we've got Mars, which is also in Cancer here, and we've got Mars will be moving into an opposition with Pluto in the coming weeks. So 25, 29. So 19th of May, you know, is really, it's interesting times. So if you look, it's going to be in an opposition on the 20th of May, and then it will be moving off, okay? In fact, that's 2 degrees, so 29. There you go. See there, Mars, one day, 19th, 20th, and then, well, actually it's not 2 degrees, it's 02, sorry, forgive me. See there, it's 28 degrees there, and then it's 02, and then it will be, it's 0. I'm reading it the wrong way around. This is Mercury retrograde, so go with me on this. So that 0 degrees, there you go. I was looking at that one, which I never normally do. It's supposed to be the other way around. So see here, Mars will be in opposition, that's 21st of May, and it's 1 degree, then it'll move to 3, just keep moving, that's the 26th of May. So it will be there for, it's moving on in, and then a few days before and a few days afterwards. So for a good week, it will affect us. So we just want to take it easy. And if we look at what Mars opposition to Pluto means, we know that it's not an energy that is an easy one. It's very, you know, it can be very compulsive, and it's where things can transform. But, you know, we don't want to be causing ourselves unnecessary problems. Now, if I go back to 18th of May, we want to look at Mercury, which is here, and that's gone 15th of May. Mercury is 14th of May, station, okay? So I'm going days, so it may be the 14th that it goes direct, but you'll see it here. It's the 15th that goes to stations, okay? Stations on the 15th, and then it's direct. So then we're out of that. And then it's also conjunct the North Node there, which is quite interesting. So there'll be a lot of maybe direction with regard to verbalizing something. Jupiter's also then in Taurus at 0 degrees. I don't know if it moves back into Aries actually when it goes, I haven't looked if it moves back in when it goes retrograde, because it will do at some point, but I won't look at that now. So we know that the sun is opposing the moon on the eclipse, full moon. I'm just reading through now some of these aspects. So the sun opposing the moon, sun is conjunct Mercury, but the sun has moved off from, but Mercury is speedy, so Mercury is going to catch up with the sun. We've got the sun conjunct Uranus here, which is moving on in. It gives us independence, unconventional behavior, and radical views. probably be a lot around over the weekend in the United Kingdom because there are very different views of what's going on in society all over the world. But I think I've brought that up twice today, that word, synchronicity, it will be on this weekend coming up in the UK. The spotlight will be on the UK because of what's going on with the monarchy, and people have differing belief systems around that and feelings about that as well. And I was thinking earlier, I saw a photo or poster type thing of Lady Diana, and it was a very beautiful photograph, but somebody had posted it on a shop front, you know, like these bill posters that just post, not like on the internet, on a wall, or, and and I was thinking about her a few days ago. It's like how life works out for people. And then I looked at her chart yesterday and I sent it to a friend of mine to look at as well, who understands astrology. And her chart was it's very defining. It's a very interesting chart. All of our charts are interesting. We're so unique and our path in life. Because if somebody is born, the same day, like just a few minutes later, the charts can be so different because of the different houses. So, and depending on where we're born in the world as well, because of the ecliptic. So Sun Uranus, then we've got the moon opposing Mercury, which we said. We've got my list here. The moon is trine to Mars. Let's see, the moon is trine, but it's moving on in. And because the moon is 21 degrees and the trine, it needs to be 21. So throughout the evening tomorrow, 5th of May, it will be in an exact trine to Mars. Then we have, I won't do the sextiles, Venus square Neptune. So that's very close. Venus here, square to Neptune up here. That's just a degree. And you can see with that, Venus is our inner needs and Neptune is way out there. It's beyond this realm. It can be compassionate, but it can be, and that's actually interesting because I think in the UK, what they've said with regard to people celebrating the event that's taking place in the UK, that people can have parties and they won't be told off for noise pollution on that day, which could be very tricky. And if there's extra abuse of alcohol, then there could be a lot of problems for some people, because I think alcohol consumption is really not used sensibly. People think they use it sensibly, but generally, if one has a desire or a need for it and has an addiction to it, it can cause blooming chaos. I know that to be true. However, not everybody does drink, so there's going to be a mix there of what goes on. And I'm not against it, but I'm against it. I say I'm against it, I'm not against it. I'm not that I'm against it, I'm just aware of the damage that it can cause to people and why it's used to lose ourselves, to disassociate. There are people that can drink sensibly, and they don't deny, how much they're doing and what they're using it for. And then there are other people that get lost in it because it's like you're able to not feel temporarily the feelings that you don't want to feel. And people think it gives them a really good time, but again, I think that's a bit of an illusion as well. It just loosens people up. And some people it can make them violent, and some people it can make them very melancholic. So it's a tricky one. Venus square Neptune is, it can cause romantic feelings that complicate life and put us into intricate situations. It's where we give priority to our own fantasies over reality. So when I look at what's going on with events, there's a lot of fantasy in these things, like a princess or the king or you know, just the whole idea. There's a lot of fantasy involved in these. There's a lot of beauty and a lot of visual beauty. I was in Oxford Street in London yesterday. I had to go to see my dentist that's around that way, and it was, you know, all of the flags out, and there were sort of crowns on top of bus stops, not real ones. And it can bring a sense of another dimension into life as well. So Venus square to Neptune can make us, you know, a bit lazy as well, but it's great for creativity and art and stuff like that. So you have the good. This is the thing with astrology. The more conscious we become, we get to use it. We get to see our traits and have an idea. It just opens a door slightly to the mind, you know, and it's a language. This is what this is that you see in front here. This is a language. And every astrologer will see something different. So when I had a meeting with somebody today who helped me, who knows a lot more than I do, because there are astrologers that have been doing it a lot longer. They've got, you know, we've all got to pick up different skills. The more we do this work and the more we read about the definitions and understandings, the more we have an understanding, and then we have our own intuitive understanding. And then when we speak to people, like you could have two people with the same chart, which would be rare, but it happens. And depending on their consciousness, their belief systems, their background, cultural, many other things, and what's going on in their lives, and where they live and where they were brought up, they're going to have a different story. So each story will play out differently, which is worth considering. The same, you know, people say when you have twins, for example, how does that work? I've got a friend who's a twin, and they were born 5 minutes apart, but whilst they've got the same chart going on, almost, they've got the same ascendant and descendant, they have got a slightly different MC and IC down here. So, you know, there are differences which shift the chart and shifts things, or definition and meaning. So Mars went to the sextile there. Mars trine Neptune. Mars is trine to Neptune. It's moving on in, but actually Neptune is trine to Lilith. I've never looked at that one before, but that looks like an interesting one. Lilith trine Neptune on the coming weekend in the world, everywhere. So, because this is the collective chart, so it applies to all of us. Mars trine Neptune, it's harmonious, and it gives us great fantasy, creativity, idealism, artistic talent. It can make us very impractical there. So Mars wants to be impulsive, and you can imagine throwing some impulsivity with that. But Jupiter sextile, semi-sextile Neptune, Jupiter square Pluto. So our belief system, stubbornness, fighting spirit. Jupiter, Pluto, Jupiter. There you go. So we can see that what's going on here. So, okay, we're nearly there. So we all figure this out as we go. It is mathematics. It is data that we humans over probably thousands of years have put data into the stars and the meaning, and we've extracted it, and then there have been measurements and measuring tools, and then telescopes and stories and mythology, and it's quite beautiful. And as I say, you know, when we live in cities, we don't get to see that beautiful sky, and it's important that we make an effort to visit places where we get to see the real sky. I remember visiting Scotland many, many years ago, and the sky was so clear one night, and I was shocked how many stars there were in the sky. Like, I was so shocked. It was the first time that I've been really conscious of looking at the beauty of the sky. So whilst we may have seen it years before, or we've had glimpses of it, we may not have really acknowledged, like, wow, that is just incredible. So much beauty in the world, despite all of the crazy things that are going on. So the node conjunct Mercury, it's intelligence and good orientation, and it's where we are open towards others. So that's good. Node conjunct Mercury, which is moving on in, because, or has it moved off? Sorry, it's moved off there, you see? It's 8 degrees, so that's moving away from. And then the node is sextile Saturn. So I didn't say, I think Saturn's really important to mention. I do love Saturn. I used to be really scared of Saturn, but I'm not anymore. Saturn is in Aquarius here. No, it's in Pisces. It's in Pisces, 5 degrees. I was born with Saturn Pisces at 27 degrees. So in a few years' time, I'll be having my second Saturn return. So the node sextile Saturn is positive. We're focused on overcoming challenges. So that's useful to us. So the node in a sextile, it's where we're aware of our responsibilities and we will walk a tirelessly path. We're going to keep walking towards the goal, which is really good, because with this up here as well, the North Node square Pluto, you could look at Evolutionary Astrology, Jeff Wolfgreen, Pluto 1 and Pluto 2 book. Those are outstanding books. So the positive thing about the Pluto square, the nodes, are that it gives us the energy that leads to a focal point. So we're being led to a focal point in our lives. So we want to see what house that is in for us. That's in my second house, Pluto, not natal but transit. And the node at the moment, the North Node, is in my 5th house, which is creativity and expression and fun and joy. Sounds good, not all fun, but it defines creativity, which can be fun or not, I guess. And then, because some creativity, like writing really deep poetry, you may have a lot of deep grief or pain, but the creativity will flow. So it all depends on aspects. And the South Node for me is just into my 11th house. So as a result of that, it will mean different things for each of us. It can be where we experience powerlessness as well. And again, depending on what that Pluto and the nodes are doing to other natal planets. So it can cause a lot of feelings of tension, where we feel, we're being pulled in different directions. And we feel that, that we're misunderstood, misconceptions. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. Have a good one, and I would take it easy. I think I'm naturally going to be taking it easy, this one, because it's in my 12th house and it will be different for different people. Catch you later. Thanks for watching.